And good evening. We are doing it live right here in Los Angeles, weeknights in the 5 o'clock hour on 790 KBC. Mottek On Money, 5 nights a week for you, live on the air right here on 790 KBC, streaming live, too, online worldwide at kbc.com. And your on-demand Mottek On Money podcast at kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, all your favorite podcast platforms. The month of December kicking off with gains following that November to Remember that wrapped up yesterday when we saw stocks rally for the best monthly performance of 2023. The Dow today coming in for a closing gain of nearly 300 points. The S&P 500 up 27 and the NASDAQ gained 79. Another winning week with the Dow up 2.4%, the S&P 500 up nearly 1%, and the NASDAQ up just about 0.5%. All of the major averages up for the fifth straight week. Even as Fed Chairman Jerome Powell tried to take away the punch bowl today, he said it was too soon to begin talking about rate cuts. Of course, expectations that the Fed is done with rate hikes has been fueling most of this rally. Today we heard the Fed Chairman Jerome Powell at Spelman College in Atlanta. That's where he gave a speech. He said that it would be premature to conclude with confidence that we have achieved a sufficiently restrictive stance or to speculate on when policy might ease. We are prepared to tighten policy further if it becomes appropriate to do so, quoting Chairman Powell's speech in Fed Speak today. Next week, we will get the latest jobs report. That'll be coming out on December 8th for jobs in the month of November. Meanwhile, big month of November with big rallies in stocks as well as bonds. It looked pretty ugly for bonds up until last month. And we saw 10 of the S&P 500's 11 sectors finish the month in the green, with energy being the only sector to fall amid a drop in crude oil prices. In the meantime, gold has hit a record high today. All this talk about inflation easing. Then here we're seeing gold at a record high close today, up $32.50 at $2,089.70 an ounce. A new record high close, blowing past the previous record high that was set in August of 2020 during the pandemic year. We're watching what's happening, of course, in the Middle East. It looks like the war with Hamas has erupted again today. Israeli airstrikes hitting homes and buildings in the Gaza Strip minutes after a week-long truce expired. We're following developments there, as well as with China. 5 Republican senators, led by Senator Marco Rubio, today asking President Biden's administration to ban travel between the U.S. and China after a spike in Chinese respiratory illness cases. An unusual illness has popped up there again. We're also, of course, seeing China mourning the passing of former U.S. Secretary of State Dr. Henry Kissinger, who visited China just a few months ago. I'll discuss the latest news coming out of China tonight with China expert Gordon Chang, author of The Coming Collapse of China and the Great U.S.-China Tech War, and on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Gordon G. Chang. Pop culture extravaganza happening in downtown Los Angeles this weekend at Comic-Con LA 2023. Thousands of people expected to pack the LA Convention Center to check out the exhibit halls, conference rooms with all sorts of pop culture stars, creators, artists, influencers, and the whole works. I'll be joined right from the conference center tonight by Chris DeMolin, the CEO of Kamikaze Entertainment, LA Comic-Con's parent company. Chris DeMolin will be joining me live later this hour. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy, gold, crypto, the whole works tonight. Joining us live now is investment expert Brian Perrian, chief investment strategist and portfolio manager at Mint Asset Management at mintassetmanagement.com. He's also the author of the 25% Cash Machine. Brian, thanks very much for taking the call here to wrap up that November to Remember and a positive start here to the month of December. Thanks so much for taking the call. Give us your view of things here at the moment.
Thank you, Frank. This has been the broadening trade that's underway right now. The market is kind of taken over by almost a force of nature with the money flows starting to come in off the sidelines, convinced that the Fed is, in fact, establishing a mission accomplished situation here with the Fed finishing their rate hike cycle. And then with the market buying into the notion that we may see rate cuts as early as spring of next year, according to some of the bond futures forecasting here, which is looking for possibly a cut as early as March, a quarter-point cut. So that's really got the animal spirits really stoked here going into the month of December here, and holding up the market from what looks like an overbought condition here. For a lot of technicians have been waiting for a pullback, but they're not getting it. And this is really even seeing today's Treasury bond, rally again further, taking the 10-year down to 4.25% from 5% in just a month. That's an enormous move, considering the size of the bond market worldwide. And this has money just pouring off the sidelines here from the standpoint of sovereign funds, endowments, pensions, retail investors, and also stock buybacks and insider buying. There's a lot of tailwinds here pushing this market higher, and the fact that it's broadening out here, seeing finally seeing the Russell 2000 and the regional bank sector break higher here this week. That was a significant secondary catalyst, which has been certainly led by the Magnificent Seven, which, if you look across the board today, most of those stocks were down. Microsoft, Meta, Google, Tesla, NVIDIA, SMCI, Supermicro. Most of those were trading in the red today as the market started to rotate and broaden out. And this is precisely what a lot of the bull market, gurus want to see happen here, and that it just wouldn't be a one-shot wonder going into the Christmas holiday led by the Mag 7, and then everything else is just kind of like, going along for the ride. So this is important development here, and it does have room to carry higher because you still have a lot of people that are not in this rally here that feel like there's a lot of performance pressure, put on them. What we want to see is also, a continuation of good economic data here coming forward here next year. Like you said, the jobless numbers and other things that still show inflation tempering. What the issue is this? So we've had a lot of wage inflation here in the last year, and a lot of what we would call sticky inflation here, where professional services and labor numbers here, and it's going to be hard for the Fed to get inflation down to 2% from its current level of 3 to 3.5%. So I'm beginning to think that we're probably getting near the trough of this inflation situation here, and that may be kind of where we have to understand that that's where the mission is accomplished here in inflation. So the bond market may be getting ahead of itself a little bit. We don't know, but as it is right now, there's just an onslaught of fresh buying here coming into the end of the year, with the fact that it's this understanding that the Fed has probably gone maybe a little bit too far on raising rates, and that they're going to have to come early into the cycle here to start cutting rates.
On the air live with investment expert Brian Perry. Interesting that the Fed chairman tried to take the punch bowl away, it seemed, saying it was too soon to begin talking about rate cuts. But despite that, we saw the market rally continue. And curiously, just as inflation appears to be easing, gold is suddenly popping to a record high just this week. In fact, today, close to $2,100 an ounce here. What do you make of that?
Well, that's in high correlation to the fact that the dollar is losing its steam here. When you have a slowing economy around the world, and you are seeing Europe is probably in recession here. China's numbers here came out. Their PMI fell to a bleaker economic picture than people had thought about. And even one big firm, CICC, barred its analysts from sharing negative comments about the economy on the market. So you've got, Wall Street strategists starting to think that we're going to start to see a slowdown heading into the first quarter here on a global basis here. So a lot of the larger developed currencies around the world are losing some value here, and the dollar has also been leading that way lower. So as an offset, you've seen a big rally in gold, a big rally in Bitcoin, and that's causing people to wonder whether this is a bifurcated market where you've got this really good push because of lower interest rates. But is that because the market's trying to have a larger tell as to whether the consumer's going to, slam on the brakes here in the first quarter around the world? Are things really going to start to slow? J.P. Morgan is thinking that the S&P is going to fall 8%, from current levels here in 2024. That's a big call because, from a research standpoint, they occupy, slots like 1 through 7 in the top 10 research firms on Wall Street. And so, for them to come out there and make that kind of a bold call tells us that, and along with Bill Ackman, of Pershing Square, also saying that the economy is headed for a hard landing. So they're concerned about the consumer, which is driving 60 to 7% of the U.S. economy here, and geopolitical risks, including the election of the U.S. here. And diminishing household savings. Those are all part and parcel to their larger collective picture that, be careful about what you wish for, meaning lower interest rates, because it may foretell of something that's in the making here, and that's where we don't want to get caught in a bull trap, on this big rally here, when in fact underneath the fundamentals may be deteriorating for the consumer in the first quarter, and that's at least what J.P. Morgan is throwing out there, Frank.
Very interesting, and just about everything went up last month, as I discussed with Dr. Mohammed Al-Arian in the previous show last evening, except oil, which moved back down again today, back to around 74 and change, Brian, despite the rising tensions in the Middle East with the war resuming following the ceasefire this week between Israel and Hamas. So what about oil here?
Well, that's exactly counterintuitive, isn't it? Well, you'd think that oil would spike based on what's a localized conflict now could regionalize into a wider war, especially there's been 70 attacks on U.S. Installations here overseas. And so that continues to provide further an uprising risk. With oil trading down based upon this OPEC Plus meeting that took place here this last week, it didn't have any teeth to it here because it basically left every country here on its own to basically voluntarily cut production. And that's just not going to happen with a lot of the outlier countries here like Nigeria and Angola and other names. And there's still the Russian embargo, which is being violated left and right. So with that in mind, the concern here is that what Saudi Arabia has done before, because they are the axe in this whole oil trade, is that they're going to flush the market with a lot of inventory just at current prices, because they can at least flush their inventory, even if it takes oil down from 75 to 65 to 60 or even lower. And so that's where you're getting to some concern, Frank, in the forward futures market for oil, is that there's going to be an every man for himself, get all your oil in the market while it's still up here in the 70s.
All right, let me ask you about crypto. I had a big conversation about crypto this week with John Najarian, Dr. J, as he's known on the financial markets, a big crypto guy, and watching a Bitcoin pop above 38,000 this week and rebounding, about 130% so far this year. Some of the other coins up even bigger. Cardano, as we discussed earlier this week, is up more than 400%. Doge, which was around 6 cents for most of the year, is now up at around 8 cents. So what are your thoughts on this crypto move here recently?
I think it keeps going. I think that it's broke out here. We still haven't had the spot Bitcoin ETFs hit the market yet. We've talked about Coinbase here recently. That was as low as $105 recently, even below that, and now it's up to, I think it closed today around 135. And so just these are big moves, and it just tells you also that again it's a hedge against deteriorating fiat currencies here, and uncertainty, geopolitical uncertainty that has really kind of taken hold. And so, again, we also have this fork that's coming up here in May of next year, where only half as many Bitcoins are going to be mined going forward here. It's going to be like there's 6.5 Bitcoins being mined every 10 minutes now. It's going to be 3.25 Bitcoins being mined going forward. And so the supply continues to tighten here. And again, a good 3 million of those Bitcoins are just missing in action from they've been lost or have been cast away with people that have passed away. And so there's just this supply of and also other coins there that are starting to move, like you said, Solana and other ones that really provide for blockchain advancements here with AI coming onto the scene and moving into the crypto world. That's a pretty powerful combination when you start applying AI to the crypto world, and no one really knows what all that means yet. But it's exciting, and that's what's got a lot of people also figuring that it can only get better from here, from the standpoint of geopolitical risk, enormous debt around the world, which now stands at almost $310 trillion, and depreciating currencies. And also Bitcoin and Ethereum and other ones have become more transparent from the standpoint of banking transparency, which is providing more credibility to it. So all those things together, Frank, are providing for a really great tailwind.
All right, and let's see what else here. At this point, while we have some time here, Brian, and you do a great job giving your assessments here. At this point, where are you putting money now into or taking it off the table?
Well, this week we had some really some great news from all the techs, which is still driving things higher here. So, that's driven the market higher, led by a lot of the big names in cybersecurity and Salesforce, Workday, Snowflake, CrowdStrike, Intuit, and Zscaler. They really have held their own, and so on this rotational thing, NVIDIA's pulled back here. I do like NVIDIA here. I spoke recently about Rocket Mortgage. Mortgage rates are up the highest level in 6 weeks right now, mortgage applications. So RKT trading at around $9.90 a share, under $10, looks like that's Quicken Loans. It's the largest mortgage broker in America. The regional banks, if people want to just cast a net over the regional bank sector on a technical trade, at least KRE is the way to go. I do like Pinterest here. These are AI plays here on website, high consumer use levels. So look at Pinterest, PINS. The big recommendation here this week on that particular stock. Palantir, another name, PLTR. That's AI, cybersecurity for government defense, focused markets. For those looking for yield here, Arbor Realty Trust, what the bond market is doing here, there's a big shift going back into some of these big high yield plays right now. And Arbor pays about a 13.7% yield, ABR, Alpha Bravo Romeo. Take a look at that. And also for the corporate bond market here, high yield bonds are starting to catch a serious bid coming into this because the credit worthiness of small corporations and middle-sized corporations has really started to take hold here with interest rates coming back down. So HYT is a BlackRock corporate bond fund paying 10.6. These corporate bonds were down 30% last year. So if these bonds recover 15 to 20% going forward here, if the Fed does get to their target rate of 2%, you're getting a 20% capital gain plus 10% dividend yields. I mean, that will in many ways outperform even stocks going forward. And coming off here, I'm just booking profits here in some of these big high tech names here because I think they need a chance to breathe here. Coinbase being the biggest screamer in the patch here, and some of the other names I just mentioned here in the Magnificent Seven. It's a good time to set some stops underneath these names because when they back and fill, it's going to be a good 10 to 15%.
All right, let me ask you this. We have Tesla back in the spotlight. It was quite a week for Elon Musk, by the way, with that big conference and his comments there, locking horns with Bob Iger from Disney. But today, back to business. SpaceX launching a rocket out of Vandenberg Space Force Base here in Southern California. That happened this morning. And then, of course, the Cybertruck delivery event happened this week, and shares slipping slightly. But Tesla's had a big year. Give us your assessment of all of that.
Well, I think Musk, for all the rawness of that interview, I thought he said it pretty straightforward here. They do make the best EV car. They own 82% of the market and of the EV market there. So they're way out ahead. They're miles ahead of the competition here. And, they're going to also monetize everything from charging stations to batteries to automated driving, autonomous driving software and all that. That's all in their wheelhouse. And so, again, Musk is just, he's got this wild storm, he says, going up in his head, and that's probably true. I don't know how he sleeps at night. But he does have the best car company in the world from the standpoint of EV. And what I'd say is, the truck is really not going to move the needle here. They're hoping to sell 250,000 units here, and it's more of a fashion statement style truck, lifestyle truck, as opposed to anything that's going to be used out in the rural America. But it's important to note that he is still pushing for futuristic ideas and technology that finds its way into other industries here. And again, his whole AI movement with Grok and what he's done here with X is really going to it's going to shake up this entire AI world. And I really am intrigued by all that he said in that interview. It was fascinating, and the way he went after Google and Larry Page, I thought was incredibly transparent about his concern for how the risks of AI if they get into the wrong hands.
Very interesting, and probably hear from him again next week, so we'll stay tuned. Yeah. Brian, thank you very much for taking the call here to wrap up a big month of November and looking ahead to December here with a lot of moving parts. We always appreciate it. That is investment expert Brian Perry with us tonight, who is Chief Investment Strategist and Portfolio Manager at Mint Asset Management at mintassetmanagement.com. Also the author of the 25% Cash Machine. That looks like that machine's been cranked up again here, Brian. Thank you very much for taking the call here tonight.
Very good, Frank. And, it's going to be, I think, a rosy and festival, cheerful finish to the year here. And I just hope that everyone in L.A. is enjoying the holiday season. Likewise, Brian. All the best to you and everybody there. Appreciate it very much. And let's get right out to the freeways now here on 790 KABC.
Friends, people like you and me have our ear to the ground on all things business. We like to be informed and well prepared. And as important as finance is, I want you to have a plan in case you're hit by someone not paying attention to the road. Thinking ahead serves us well. And even still, we can get caught off guard as people are so focused on their destination that they might not have a plan if they're in an accident that's not their fault. That's why I encourage you to put my friend Attorney Clark Fielding's number in your phone. Do it now. 833-88-SHARK's the number. So if you're in an accident, you'll be ready with your strategy to make Clark Fielding your very first call. Fielding Law aims for the highest possible settlements, considering you might need long-term care, rehab, compensation for lost wages, and any ongoing physical or emotional pain. So if you're hurt in any kind of accident, call for a free consultation with Fielding Law. You can trust them. They're honest, respected, and your strategy in case you get into that unexpected accident. Motorcycle, truck, pedestrian, scooter, hit and run, boating, or bike accidents, you name it. The number to call is 833-88-SHARK. That's 833-88-SHARK. Or go to clarkthesharklaw.com. 790 KBC welcomes Brian Adams. This is going to be big, coming to the Honda Center January 28th. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. And right now, caller 9 wins at 1-888-790-5222. Yep, you can get a pair of tickets to the show furnished by Live Nation. If you're caller 9, call right now, 1-888-790-5222. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KBC, and we have a winner to kick off the month of December on Wall Street. The Dow up nearly 300 points today, settling up 295 at the bell at 36,245. The S&P 500 up 27 at 4,595, and the NASDAQ gained 79 points at 14,305. The yield in the 10-year note is back down to 4.20%. Remember, it popped above 5% not too long ago, sending fixed-rate mortgage rates to 23-year highs, and they have pulled back. Bitcoin has had quite a run this past month, up above $38,000, right now about $85 at $38,429. We see Ethereum moving higher by $1 at $2,092, and Doge has moved to 8 cents. The price of oil actually pulling back today despite the resumption of fighting in the Middle East. We see oil hovering at around $74 a barrel. Gold, a big story here, at a record high, up $32.50 at $2,089.70 an ounce. Why is everyone in such a good mood? Well, maybe gas prices could be one of the reasons here. We see gas prices pulling back a bit here in the Los Angeles area. Regular now averaging $4.94 a gallon. Did dip below $5 a gallon on average this week. $5.29 the average price for premium. $5.89 the average price for diesel in the L.A. Long Beach area, according to today's AAA fuel gauge survey. And now the latest news for you here on 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KBC. It's the end of an era in U.S.-China relations with the departure this week of former U.S. Secretary of State Dr. Henry Kissinger, who died Wednesday at the age of 100. Secretary of State Kissinger visited China secretly back in 1971, and that led to President Nixon visiting China in 1972. And the rest is history. We see China in mourning today, mourning the death of Dr. Kissinger. As one report put it, he was the giant panda the U.S. sent to China, rare and friendly. Since the U.S. does not have such an animal, Kissinger played giant panda, according to one of the comments coming out of China today. An editorial in the state-run Global Times newspaper called Kissinger's death a tremendous loss for China-U.S. relations, criticizing the current direction of U.S. policy toward China under the headline, "May there be successors to Henry Kissinger in the United States." Joining us live now is China expert Gordon Chang, the author of The Coming Collapse of China and the Great U.S.-China Tech War on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Gordon G. Chang. Gordon Chang, thank you very much for taking the call. I remember speaking with you when Dr. Kissinger recently visited China. He has now died at the age of 100, and the China media and others there mourning his passing. Give us your reaction to this big news this week.
Well, first of all, we mourn the death of any American. But we got to remember that China's regime, which considers the United States to be its enemy, is mourning Dr. Kissinger, praising him. And that should be a warning to us that what Kissinger has been saying, especially for the last 4 decades when he's been a consultant, has not been in the interest of America.
Let's talk more about that. Following that high-profile meeting, he met with the Chinese leader, Xi Jinping. Dr. Kissinger, at the age of 100, had that big meeting there. Did we ever find out what came out of that meeting?
Well, we really don't know. But what we have seen, of course, since then is the meeting between President Biden and Xi Jinping on the 15th of November. Also, there has been a number of other events since that time. Xi Jinping's talking to American businessmen that evening, and all the problems in China itself, which have been manifesting themselves pretty much all at the same time. So I think that the Chinese leadership realizes it needs the United States once again. It's turned a friendly face. But we Americans should remember that this friendly face is only going to be temporary because we have seen Chinese maliciousness and we have seen Chinese hostility. And that, unfortunately, is the default posture of the Communist Party.
And I remember interviewing Dr. Kissinger over the years. Taiwan has, of course, flared up in recent decades, and on one occasion, I remember having a chance to interact with him on one of those flare-ups. And what about on the issue of Taiwan? Anything instructional here based on Dr. Kissinger's history with China and Taiwan that would be instructive at this point?
Well, in 1972, when Nixon did go to China, I think that essentially American diplomats and Kissinger thought that Taiwan would eventually just surrender to the People's Republic. But that hasn't worked out. Kissinger never went to Taiwan. He's never understood Taiwan. And there's been a distressing tendency in Kissinger's, for instance, his views on Chinese history, which try to paint China as a non-aggressive state. But clearly, Kissinger, who knew better, was telling the American people a version of Chinese history that only the Communist Party loved. And for that, I think Americans should condemn Kissinger because really what he was doing was he was prettifying an awful, horrendous regime to the United States.
That's an important point you just made. I was not aware of the fact that he did not visit Taiwan, but he did make more than 100 trips to China over the years.
He certainly did, especially as a consultant for the last 41 years. Kissinger Associates, he formed, I believe, in 1982, and he pursued his business interests, which is fine. But we should take his comments about U.S.-China relations during that period, which furthered his business interests, and we should put them into context because those comments were not made with the interests of the United States in mind. They were made with Dr. Kissinger's personal business interests, and that's fine. That's our system, but we Americans should understand what Kissinger was saying and treat it accordingly.
I don't think we've had a chance to speak since the president of China visited with the president here, and Governor Newsom cleared up San Francisco and had the Chinese flags out for the Chinese president's visit recently. What about what happened just recently here in the Bay Area?
You know, we really don't know, Frank. There was a press conference by President Biden immediately after his 4-hour meeting with Xi Jinping. President Biden made some comments, but the two things that we should keep in mind is that, first of all, Xi Jinping was not standing next to our president when President Biden was saying what occurred. That's not a good sign. And also, it was not a good sign that there was no joint statement between China and the United States after that meeting. Again, not a good sign. There have been in the last couple of days reports that there were 20 deliverables from that meeting, but we don't know what they are. And we certainly should find out because they are, all of them, I'm sure, essential and go to the point of American security.
China also asserting itself in the Middle East, where Israel's war with Hamas has erupted again with airstrikes continuing today, according to the latest reports. And, of course, we have the Russia army pressing its invasion of Ukraine. What about China's role in these conflicts?
Well, first of all, China has supported Russia from the very beginning. I believe that it green-lighted Russia's invasion of Ukraine, something evident from that 5,300-word joint statement that they issued on February 4th, 2020, just 20 days before Russia's invasion. That's when they declared their no-limits partnership. And since that time, China has been all in supporting Russia. And we see something similar, and that is China supporting Iran and Iran supporting the Houthis, the Hezbollah, and Hamas's attacks on Israel. So again, China is an arsonist. It's setting another part of the world aflame. And I believe that Iran would not be able to afford its support of its terrorist proxies were it not for China's increased purchases of, for instance, Iranian oil.
One other important point before we let you off the hook, we're getting reports today that 5 Republican senators, led by Senator Marco Rubio of Florida, asking President Biden to ban travel between the U.S. and China again following a spike in a mysterious Chinese respiratory illness. What do we need to know about that?
Well, so far it seems that there's no novel pathogen, which is what China has told the World Health Organization. And it appears what's occurring is a natural spike in respiratory diseases following a period where people were kept at home and under extraordinary lockdown, so their immune systems didn't adjust. But until we know for sure, Frank, I believe that those 5 senators are correct. We should be banning arrivals from China or arrivals from anyone who's been in China in the last couple of weeks, because we do not need more disease in our country. So that travel ban is something which is essential.
And we already see the World Health Organization asking China for more information about this, citing a report on clusters of undiagnosed pneumonia in children. Gordon Chang, thank you very much for taking the call on all of this tonight. Look forward to speaking with you again soon. In the meantime, we'll be following you closely on X, formerly known as Twitter. That is China expert Gordon Chang, author of The Coming Collapse of China and the Great U.S.-China Tech War, and on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Gordon G. Chang. Thank you very much for taking the call here tonight.
Thank you, Frank.
And right out to the freeways now, 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KBC. It's party time in downtown Los Angeles, a pop culture extravaganza. In downtown L.A. this weekend, Comic-Con L.A. 2023, thousands of people expected to pack the L.A. Convention Center. In fact, they're doing that right now, checking out the exhibit halls, conference rooms, all sorts of pop culture stars, creators, artists, influencers, and the whole works there. Big boost to the L.A. economy, too. Let's bring in the organizer of all this, Chris DeMoulan, the CEO of Kamikaze Entertainment, L.A. Comic-Con's parent company. Chris, thank you very much for taking the call here, and congratulations on this tremendously successful Comic-Con. Again, things are really shaping up big this weekend. Take it from the top and tell us what's happening there.
Well, thanks, Frank. I appreciate you asking us to come back. You know, for the people that haven't been to the con before, I think the thing we always want them to know is just how eclectic it is. That, you know, we want to have a con that reflects the very broad interests of Angelinos. And so we have traditional stuff like panels with Lord of the Rings actors and The Office and Harry Potter, but we also have brand new stuff like One Piece and House of the Dragon. And just 2 years ago, we expanded into the second hall here at the Convention Center and have a whole sort of second show, which is all focused on gaming and anime. So, you know, LA is sort of the creative capital of the world for all of those businesses. And so we wanted to have a show that, you know, no matter what stripe of nerddom or fandom you had, you'd find something here that that would resonate with you. Right.
Convention of Nerds is a big part of it, right? But a lot of creativity there and a lot of unexpected things. Quite a gamut of all sorts of sights and sounds there. What are some of the things that will be coming up this weekend?
Well, there's a couple of things. I mean, we have the largest selection of artists in kind of the nerd world of any con in the country. We have 450 artists, and most of them are local artists. And so it's a great place to come and, you know, do some pre-holiday shopping for, you know, the nerds that you love or the people in your family that love that sort of stuff. But on the flip side, we also have a couple of video game competitions going on. So we've got a Mortal Kombat tournament and a Street Fighter tournament. So if you're into that sort of thing, you can come, and anybody who's at the show can actually become a participant and compete for the prizes. So I think it's that exploration and discovery and eclecticism that our fans love, and I think that's why we've been able to, you know, get the attendance base up to well over 100,000 people every year.
All right, and comic books, right? A big part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. We probably have 40, 50 comic book vendors here, and one of the nice things, you know, what a great convention center that we have here in Los Angeles is, given its size, this show never sells out. A lot of comic conventions, you know, San Diego sell out and you can't get into it. We always have tickets available for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And so we get a lot of families making last-minute plans to come here because, you know, there's some show that their kids love and they realize they can come and see it here and experience it and have a fun activation around it and build sort of lifetime memories.
That is terrific. And so there's a lot of discussions, too. Give us an update. Who's the hottest influencer there? Give us some names that people might recognize out there, especially the young folks listening tonight.
Oh, you know, I'm the wrong person for that. We have some amazing influencers over in the gaming hall. We actually have a couple of people that have 4 or 5 million followers, and they're going to be doing play-by-play on the Mortal Kombat and the Street Fighter tournaments to their 3 or 4 million Twitch followers. So anybody who follows that, if you go to Twitch, they'll be featured on the main page, and they'll be able to see what those tournaments are and follow the play-by-play of their favorite influencers. What is the website for this, for anyone that wants to take a closer look at it? It is ComicConLA.com, ComicConLA.com. All right, then there's a lot to look at. So quite a wide range of just about everything there. So discussions, and then you can actually watch people play video games, which is a big thing right now, right? Absolutely. I mean, funnily enough, esports is the fastest growing spectator sport in the country, and we also try to, in addition to sort of traditional new entertainment, have some things that are very uniquely LA. So we have the morning DJs on one of the local stations. They're doing a party tonight that's sort of a variety party with music and comedy. We've got some members of the LAFC football team coming in with the MLS Cup from last year on Sunday, doing a skills clinic for kids. So it's really a mix of nerd stuff, but also stuff that's really uniquely LA. And how did you get this whole thing started? It has really gotten big. You had more than 120,000 people there last time around. Yeah, it started in 2011 from a sister and two brothers who got frustrated that for the second year in a row they couldn't get tickets to San Diego. So they started it here in Kentia Hall, which is the basement parking garage of the convention center. And little by little, we just grew it. And I think, in COVID, when the whole world shut down and we couldn't do anything for 2 years, when we came back, instead of shrinking, we grew. That was when we expanded into gaming and anime. And I think, the Los Angeles fan community has really reacted well to that, this idea that they can come here and no matter what it is they like, they're going to be able to find an experience that that either reminds them of the thing they loved when they were a kid, or they discover a new show they've never seen before. And then you get into, the worlds of gaming and anime, which are much more sort of cutting edge fields of entertainment. And I think it's just expanded in a way that's allowed anybody who's a fan to find something they love. Yeah, you got kids of all ages, basically. A lot of big kids there and getting dressed up in costumes. That's one of the first things you notice, at least I did when I went there a couple of years ago. A lot of people dressed up in costumes, right? It's always fun. About a third of the people that come here dress in costumes. Every year on Saturday night, we have the National Cosplay Championships and have some of the best cosplayers in the world come. And every Sunday we do a kids costume contest. So, the show for years used to be in October, and I always thought it was like one more opportunity for your kids to get out their Halloween costume and enjoy it. But we'll probably have 400 or 500 kids on the main stage on Sunday participating in a costume contest. Well, fantastic, Chris. We'll let you get back to the festivities at Comic-Con LA 2023, now happening at the LA Convention Center. Again, congratulations, Chris, for putting all that together and assembling that great team with Nicole Rodriguez, with NRPR Group, and others there. Thank you very much for joining us live here tonight. Thank you, Frank. It's always a pleasure. Thank you very much, Chris DeMolin, the CEO of Kamikaze Entertainment LA. That is Comic-Con's parent company, that big conference happening at the LA Convention Center this weekend. This is Mottek On Money on 790 KBC. I'll be back again on Monday in the 5 o'clock hour. The Dow wrapping up the day today up nearly 300 points, coming off a big month of November. The S&P 500 up 27, and the NASDAQ gained just about 80 points. Gold stands at a record high here heading into the weekend. Stay tuned now for the 790 KBC News Blitz here on 790 KBC.
Are you ready to focus on what you're truly passionate about? At the University of Massachusetts Amherst, we're committed to helping students design a meaningful path for their future. As one of the country's top-tier public research universities, we're helping drive the world forward, empowering students to challenge convention, champion innovation, and embrace the freedom of affecting real positive change in the world. Tap now to explore flexible options for a high-quality education or visit umass.edu. Be revolutionary.